always said there's a seat for you on Renew. We have Jenny here as a guest tonight joining us, and we'll go into that in a second, but Khalif and Julie are going to want to say hi and welcome everybody. So let's do that first.
Hey everybody, I just want to say hello and thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for your continued support throughout the community, and we hope that you enjoy the show today.
Hey everyone, it's me, Jules. I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I hope you guys have a wonderful time.
And tonight joining us is Jenni Burnett. She is wonderful within this community. We all know her so much and love her and watch her channel. She has an amazing, amazing story to share with us tonight. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let Jenni introduce herself. Let us give her some of her background about her channel, about herself, and then we'll get right into questions from the co-host and from the viewers. It's going to be a great night, you guys, so let's have fun.
Okay, well, I'm Jenni. I live in Oregon, and I started my channel in 2009. I'm not even sure exactly how I came across YouTube, but I know I started watching channels that talked about clean eating and just weight loss and fitness in general. And at that point, I was 535 pounds, and I decided that I wanted to start my own channel and just kind of share things that I was going through. And I think I was just looking for support. So if you go back to my first videos, there I am, and not really talking about a whole lot specifically. I don't think I even knew necessarily where I wanted to go. But through that, I just kind of monitored. I started by monitoring my weight and just kind of keeping track for myself. I had initially wanted to do bariatric surgery back in 2007, but financing had fallen through twice, and I had kind of given up. And at my heaviest weight of 2009 and 2010, I just was going through a really deep depression. And my life changed in 2010. I got a job that had health insurance, which before I hadn't had health insurance for 4 years. And with getting health insurance, I was able to see a doctor, start advocating for myself, and actually get the help that was out there. And a big turning point for me was I started seeing a therapist that acknowledged I'm not just crazy, that this is a valid thing that I'm struggling with as far as binge eating and food addiction, and diagnosed me with an eating disorder. And I finally felt justified and felt validated, because I felt for so long that people just didn't think I was strong enough and just go on a diet and you'll be fine. What's wrong with you? But I felt like, at what point is, you know, I'm over 500 pounds. At what point is it don't just go on a diet? Is there a medical problem? Is there an issue that I'm struggling with? And so working with her helped me tremendously. And then in 2000, so that was 2010, 2011, I was able to go to a treatment center for eating disorders and really did some intensive therapy for 3 months, worked on my food issues. I also had food fears, and just from history of going on diets and diets and diets, I had this fear that I shouldn't eat corn because it's a starch, and starches are bad, and starches will make me fat, so I can't eat corn. And I can't eat peas, and just these weird food fears that just dominated my thought process. And then what would happen would, I would be so strict with myself, then I would binge because I couldn't handle it, because I was so strict and I had all these food rules that I was trying to live by. And so going to that treatment center helped me find balance, helped me to learn to eat things like corn and drink milk, and that those things aren't going to make me fat. What's making me fat is the fact that I was eating fast food 3 times a day, which in my deep depression I was. So that was a big help. And then in that time, being that I had health insurance, my insurance did cover gastric bypass. So I started on the road towards that, and I had to be an employee for a year. And then they also wanted me down, well, at first they said down 100 pounds. But I kept losing weight consistently and working on the mental aspect. And then along with that, the weight loss happened. When I worked on the mental part, then the weight loss happened, and I wanted to eat better foods, and I wanted to do better. And then I was able to get my gastric bypass finally in December. I was originally scheduled in October of 2012, and on the surgery table, they discovered a large mass in my abdomen that scared the hell out of me. And so they woke me up and told my family and told me and thought it might be cancer, and it was very scary. And it was very large. It was actually had over 2 liters of fluid in the mass. And because I was so heavy, it just sat there and it just grew for who knows how long. They don't even know how long, but they said potentially it could have been growing since puberty. So we got that taken out, or I got that taken out in November. And then the gastric bypass was able to happen on December 7th. And so that was a big life changer, but discovering that mass was a life changer as well, because it was a huge wake-up call that even though I felt okay, like I didn't have any symptoms, that my body was having a problem. And I think I was in denial a little bit that because I wasn't having any major physical problems, or because I felt okay, that, you know, oh, I'll just get the gastric bypass and lose weight and my life will be great. But yeah, so my gastric bypass happened, and I'm doing great with it. I've lost close to 50 pounds now. I haven't done an official weigh-in, but it's got to be getting close to 50 pounds. And I'm continuing to learn more about myself and still working in therapy, which I think is so important. And I still read books all the time. And yeah, so that's my story.
I do have a question, just since we just touched base on the insurance and you getting the job that afforded you this. What would have your plan B been if either A, you wouldn't have been able to get the job, or for some reason you financially would not have had the money without insurance to do it? Because, you know, there is a lot of people that are in that situation where their employers opt out of those kinds of surgeries and will not pay for them, or B, they just financially, they can't afford that. And the way the housing market is, they can't afford to take, you know, a loan out against their home or whatever. So what would have your plan B been if, say, that wouldn't have happened? Thank God it did, but if it didn't, what would have plan B been?
Well, I think I would have just continued on. I actually lost, before surgery, 80 pounds on my own. And I just would have continued on with the clean eating. And when I say clean eating, I mean lots of fruits and vegetables, getting away from packaged and processed foods, shopping on the outer corners of the grocery store, trying to stay out of those middle aisles. And I still continue that. And that was kind of my goal in getting the gastric bypass, is to assist me with that. But had I not been able to get it, I would have just continued on with what I'm doing. I just felt like this was kind of a stepping stone, or helping me kind of fast track it a little bit, because I was so morbidly obese, that rather than taking 5 years to lose 200 or 300 pounds, hopefully a year and a half or 2 years. But as far as someone not having the opportunity to have gastric bypass, I still think it's completely doable. And it goes back to, in my opinion, of clean eating, exercise, and then working on the mental aspect as well. I mean, those are really the 3 top things that are going to help. And I think striving to be a better person and live a better life, when you do that, the weight will fall off.
I could not agree with you more.
Good answer.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
When you were over 500 pounds, what kept you going? You know, why didn't you just stop and say, you know what, I'm just going to be this size, and I'm just going to love myself at this size, and I won't even try to change?
So I think, and sometimes I still feel like that 500-pound person, even though I'm at, I think, 415 now. I think, I mean, I feel lucky that at that weight I was still able to be active. I actually was going to school and working. Um, so and I've always been tall and I've been able to kind of carry my weight well, but it was starting to take its toll. And I was having times where, you know, my days off I wasn't wanting to get out of bed. And I think the depression is more of what kind of overcame me at times, and that scared me. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to just say, "Oh, I'll just go on disability." And I mean, not that someone on disability has given up, but that I could have done that and just said, "This is my life," you know, of I'm just gonna be who I am and live the day. But I wanted to be better. I wanted to strive to be better. I still want to have kids. I wanted to get married. And it was important to me, again, kind of going back to being the best person I can be, to meet that partner and to be a better mom someday. And I think that's what kept me going, is that hope of the future. And I'm so thankful I had that little tiny light at the end of the tunnel of, you could have this if you keep working and if you keep going towards that path. And kind of going back to, if I hadn't found the job, I think I would have continued to try and find a job, or continued towards, this is what I want, I'm persevering towards it. That's a quality that I think I've been gifted, as far as that perseverance of, if I set my mind to it, I will get there somehow. Or I mean, I will just continue on until I get there. So, but having that little bit of hope of, I want to be a mom, and I want to be more active, and I want to meet a man and get married and have those moments, I think that's what kept me going.
First of all, I looked back at your very first video, and huge transformation already. I mean, significant change. So congratulations on that. You look amazing. And I also was wondering, I know that you were working back then. So what is it that you did for work? Was it a sit-down job? Were you on your feet? How did your weight play into your job?
So it was definitely a sit-down job. I don't think I could have done a stand-up job. And even now, I think I would struggle with a stand-up job. I walk a lot more at my job now than I ever have, which is great. But at the time I was working, my dad had a store in the mall. And so I'd work at his store, and then I would get off work, excuse me, and then go to night school. And I have a degree in healthcare administration. So it would start out in the morning of going to McDonald's and then going to work. And I was unhappy there. I just wasn't, I wasn't happy at all, and I wasn't being challenged. And then I would get off work and go eat fast food somewhere, because I wouldn't go home, because I kind of live out in the country. So I would stay in town and eat fast food, and then go to school. And then school was sitting down the whole time. And then, excuse me, school would get out about 10:45 at night. So, and I would start work about 8 or 9, I think. So it was a long day, and I think I used that as an excuse of, oh, well, I can't go home and I can't make my meal, so I'm just going to eat fast food all day. And there were days where it was over 5,000 calories a day, and I was in denial about it. I mean, I thought, oh, I'm not eating that bad. I'm having, you know, lettuce on my burger or whatever. You know, I was justifying it in my head.
Been there, done that.
We all do that.
Yeah. That, oh, this is healthy, like it's a whole wheat bun, you know, or whatever. So, but it was definitely food addiction, and I was using food to medicate me because I was unhappy. And then once school got out, then I got the job that I'm at now, which was also a sit-down job. But even the orientation, which was a lot of walking and kind of touring around the place, I'm huffing and puffing and way in the back and really struggling. And yeah, I'm glad I'm not there anymore.
We have a question. We have questions coming in from the viewers, obviously, and there are several. So we're going to try to work those in as we're going here. Belinda Ball asks, Jenny, have there been any time during your journey so far that you have regretted your decision for weight loss surgery? And if so, what do you regret? Do you have any regrets so far?
So a couple things come up. I feel like, even though I did all this research beforehand, I feel like I thought it was going to be a foolproof cure for me. I thought that I would only be able to eat a quarter of a cup and I would be full and I'd be like, ooh, I'm done with that. And I'm not. Honestly, I still have those cravings. I still have that, if I have a little, even though I have a small amount, if I'm starting to feel full or I start to hiccup, which is a sign that I'm full, I still want to eat what's left on that plate. And that's a mental thing for me. And I continue to struggle with that. So I regret that I wasn't more realistic, that this is not a cure-all. This is not a, I didn't think beforehand it was a quick fix, but I thought it would do more of the work for me, and it doesn't. And then also, when I was going through those medical problems with the cyst, there was actually a third surgery. So the first surgery was discovering the cyst, and the gastric bypass surgery was aborted. That's the word they used. Second surgery was having the mass removed. The third surgery was to try the gastric bypass again, and again it didn't happen because the wound where they removed the cyst was so infected, even though I was on antibiotics and didn't have a fever. So again, did the bowel prep. Again, I was put on the table under anesthesia and woken up, and again, it didn't happen. And I really had a moment where I said, I think God's trying to tell me something. And I said, I don't want to get upset, but I said to the surgeon, I can't do it. This is a sign. And I kind of surrendered at that point and said, if this is what's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I put my fate in the surgeon's hands. And I said, I'm leaving it up to you. I can't make this decision anymore. And so I didn't tell anybody on YouTube. I didn't announce it because I didn't want to go through that heartache again. And it finally happened. I'm really happy it did. So sorry to get emotional. I wasn't expecting that. But so that was one point where, that was a turning point for me. It almost didn't happen. But I'm thankful it did. And now I have to use it to the best of the ability and not rely on it, but use it as a tool, like they all say.
Awesome.
All right, we have another question from KFox9816, and she says, Jenny, you've lost a substantial amount of weight. Has anyone treated you differently, whether negatively or positively? If so, do you have any advice or perspective on how you've handled these changes?
I don't think that I've noticed anybody treating me differently as far as, better or worse. I notice I get a lot more looks when I'm like at the mall or even at work or just out and about. Like I'll have more men looking at me and then I kind of double take like, what's he staring at? And then I'm like, oh, he's staring at me. Like, okay, I'm starting to feel kind of that sexy back a little bit. And my hair is getting longer, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm looking kind of cute. So I've noticed that for sure. I feel a little bit like people that are close to me, like my family or my coworkers, look at me a little bit like, why isn't she losing more weight faster? Or, shouldn't the pounds be melting off? Like, and so I feel, and I don't know if that's in my head, it might be, but I feel self-conscious as far as that. Like sometimes people that don't know about gastric bypass, they see people, a year later and they're like half their size. And I think people feel like that should happen in the first 3 months when it really doesn't. It's slow and steady. At least for me, it's been slow and steady. So I think there's a little bit of that too.
A question from Nolan, Couch Battle. He wants to know if the 50 pounds that you've lost since your surgery, did that include the mass, or was that the weight that you've lost?
It included the mass. It was hard to tell I was going through so much in those 3 months that my weight kind of went down about 10 pounds after the mass, but then it kind of went back up. So I don't think any of us, as far as me and the doctors, really know exactly how much the mass weighed. They didn't weigh it, at least in my chart it doesn't say that they weighed it, but they did say it had the 2 liters of fluid. But the 50 pounds does include the mass.
Prairie Princess 1 and Zen Maiden both asked kind of the same questions, but Zen's is a two-parter. She wants to know, how long have you been overweight? And then the second part that they both asked was, do you have a goal weight in mind or a target weight that you would like to get to? So there's kind of a couple questions there, and we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah.
So I have always been overweight. I've always been the heaviest person in the room, and in my, and it's so embarrassing to say, but in my 2nd grade picture, school picture, I was wearing a maternity dress, and it had little elephants on it. I mean, and that was in the 80s, but I've always been heavy and always been tall, so that's good. That, I think that's helped me, but yeah, I've lost 70 pounds twice before this last time, so technically 3 times, but the first 2 times were in my late teens and then again in my early 20s. So I would lose a large amount of weight and then put it back on plus more, and then lose it again and then put it on plus more. And those were both with Jenny Craig. And I had really good success with that, but long term it just didn't really stay off. And I think it's because I didn't really deal with why it happened in the first place, which is what I'm trying to do now. And then as far as a goal weight, I struggle with this because I have a hard time picturing myself at 200 pounds or 150 pounds or 175 pounds. I have a hard time picturing that. And so I don't want to, I guess I don't want to set myself up, not for failure, but I'm afraid to make that goal. So smaller goals help me more. So right now, I would love to get under 400 pounds, and I'm close. I'm less than 20 pounds away from that. And then from there, it's maybe get to 350, and then 300 and 250. And people on YouTube have been such an inspiration to me. Heidi has lost so much weight and was, you know, at over 500 pounds, and now she's in the 200s. And I mean, that just seems awesome. Well, it is awesome, but seeing her attain that makes me feel like it's possible for me, but I'm kind of afraid to get my heart set on it because I don't want to disappoint myself. And in the past, I've gained weight before, and so I feel like I'm kind of afraid to put a number there.
All right, well, we have another question from Carol MS55, and it's kind of was a good segue what you were saying. Her question is, Jenny, do you treat yourself for achieving mini goals along the way? And do you set mini goals? So I think you answered part of that, but
yeah. Treating myself is one thing that I have a hard time with because I think that I come from the frame of mind, if I want something, I just go buy it. If I want a new eyeshadow or if I want a new outfit or whatever, I just go buy it. And so I think making goals and treating myself is important. And so I'd like to work on that more. I did make myself a goal. I think when I hit 429, I bought 3 new shirts, which I made a video about, and I felt so self-conscious because they were like they actually fit. They weren't huge and too big. So, but I still felt self-conscious about it. And but that was one of my mini goals. And I'd like to set one now for when I get into the 300s and something to celebrate. But I haven't decided, you know, what that is yet. Maybe you guys have some suggestions. So.
I remember when you gave us a list of videos that when you submitted your application we watched, and one of them was about the binge eating. And I wanted to go into that a little bit because I've done that myself, as you know, and I am a food addict myself. And I remember in that video you talked about buying, and I wrote them down, Ben & Jerry's, pizza rolls, 6 candy bars, French bread, Chinese food for dinner, and cookies. And now I would have ate all of that. I would have bought that and came home and threw down. I ain't even gonna lie, a little bit. When you had all that food, how much, if you remember, how much of that did you eat, or did you eat? Do you like eat a bunch and then back off, and then eat a bunch and back off, or do you just go crazy?
So that video is actually my highest viewed video. That brings a lot of people to my channel because I think it is such a big thing that people struggle with, and struggle with it in secret. You know, a lot of people have emailed me and said, thank you for showing that, because I don't have the strength to even admit that to my partner or my parent or, you know, friends or whatever. I think I was more of someone that would space it out. So I probably would have ate the Chinese food and then something sweet after that. So like either the candy bar or the Ben & Jerry's, and then been on the computer while I had the TV on, and just having those multiple distractions of eating, computer, and the TV, my mind would check out. And that's where I would truly, truly get my high or my relaxation, which is, I wasn't really going for a high, like, woo, this feels great. It was more of numbing out, trying to, I felt like so much of my time was spent feeling bad about myself, feeling shame, having feelings about my family or whatever was going on at the time. And so by doing those things all at the same time, I would be able to numb out and kind of escape from myself a little bit. And so, and I would continue that on. So it would be eat until I got stuff, and then be on the computer or TV or whatever, and then half an hour or an hour later, oh, I still got those candy bars, I'm going to go grab those. And again, eat until I'm pretty full, and then just continue it on. So it wasn't everything all at once to where I probably would have gotten sick if I would have eaten all of it, but it was spreading it out.
Now, another one of those videos that you sent was a part 2, the binge eating, and I saw that one was done, it might have been February 2012, but it was sometime early in 2012. Was it actually harder to put that video up since you had a couple of years to work on all of your problems, and then you came back and got hit with the same problem?
Yes. And I think the reason I included that one was because that was kind of a turning point for me, that I'd come so far, but yet I still had this secret lover of food. And, you know, when I couldn't take it anymore, I had to turn to that. And I was mad at myself over it. I was mad, and I was upset, and I was just pissed off. And at the time, I was actually talking with producers at ABC's 2020. They were going to be following me through my journey of gastric bypass surgery. And so in talking with them, and I had all this worked up, you know, to go through with this show, and then it ended up falling through. I wanted to document that too, and not just document the good, but then document those rough times, because we all have them, and I still have them, even coming, you know, even coming this far, I still have those dark times, and I still have those times where I find myself munching on something, and then like nuts, which I talked about last week in my video, of consuming these high-calorie foods even though it's a small amount, and it's because I'm using that food still to get that satisfaction, or to numb out, or whatever that high is that I get from the food. I'm still using it at times. And so, but I'm so much more aware of it now and able to reel it back in and have control over it. But I think that was my intention with showing that video, was I was just angry at myself and angry at the world, and frustrated at this thing called food.
We have a question from Carrie Parisho. Jenni, I know you did a lot of research on gastric bypass. Was the lap band procedure an option or a consideration?
So I felt like lap band would be better for someone that had more like 50 or 100 pounds to lose, whereas, you know, I've got 300 extra pounds to lose. and I just felt like the lap band wouldn't give me enough. The gastric bypass not only has the food restriction, which lap band does, but it also has the malabsorption, which is where my intestines are rerouted, so I don't absorb as many calories as, say, someone who hasn't had gastric bypass surgery. Also, because of the malabsorption, there's what's called dumping syndrome, where your body can't handle sugar. Now, some people that have had gastric bypass don't seem to have the dumping syndrome, but my hope it was and is with getting the gastric bypass is that if I do consume sugar in a moment of, I just have to have this cake right now, and if I eat it, and if it physically makes me sick, my hope is that I won't do that again, or I won't do that as often as I used to before, whereas I was eating cake all the time in my dark times. So I still have not had sugar because I don't want to get sick, and I think it's that kind of looming, you better not eat that or you could get sick, and that's helped me to stay on the right path. So those are the reasons that I chose gastric bypass. I have seen people that have lost hundreds of pounds on lap band, and that's awesome. But I just didn't feel confident in myself. That I felt like if I was going to go through this surgery, that gastric bypass would need to be my nutritionist calls it the bully. That I needed the bully to keep me in check. So.
I also remember in one of the videos, and I'm not even sure what the title of it was, but you spoke about a show that was on TLC that I watched, and I loved that show. It was so good. It was called My 600-Pound Life, I believe.
Yes.
Now, if you would have applied for that show and they would have accepted you, do you think that's something, I mean, because that does take consideration. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to be on a show, but is that something you would have done, or would you have thought that's a little invasive, having someone in your home following you constantly? What would have you done in that circumstance?
So I almost did something similar to that with 2020. I was willing to document my progress because I feel like my story is unique, and I do have a voice, and I want to share what I go through. So I was actually willing to do something like that and wanted to. But then when they discovered the mass in my abdomen, and honestly, it shook up my whole world. I mean, it just changed me and really messed with me. And I was in shock. Like in the hospital, they sent me home that same day. And honestly, like, I was just in shock, and my aunt was sitting with me, and we still kind of like talk about it. Like, that was so strange. So after that, I'm glad that I didn't have a TV show following me, because it was personal, and it was just too much. So I think it all happens for a reason, and even though I wanted to document it, and I did document some things with my YouTube channel, I'm kind of glad in the end that it didn't work out, because my hope is to someday write a book about my experience and help other people, and especially people that are over 500 pounds that are having a hard time feeling that hope and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, to help them realize that if you do persevere, your life will change and can change. Not going to happen instantly, but it will change, and I'm proof of that. And I can speak on that because I've been in your shoes. I've been over 500 pounds, and I do absolutely understand. So.
Okay, it's another question coming in. This time is from Brooke, Crazy Running Mom. And she says, I remember in the summer you spoke a lot about your dad and his wavering support. How does your family support you now?
That's a great question. Thank you. It's been strange. So my dad wasn't very supportive of the gastric bypass. He didn't want me to do it. He felt like I just needed to try harder. And when that scare happened, sorry to keep going back to it, but it was a huge scare, and it shook up my whole family. They all got brought into the conference room, and there was the shock of huge mass, possible cancer. What does this all mean? And so he went from being upset about the gastric bypass to, let's just get her healthy. And in doing that and getting the mass removed and finding out it's not cancer, and I think at that point the gastric bypass, he was more comfortable with the gastric bypass because he realized, hey, she's got some medical problems now. If she doesn't get her weight under control, it's just going to get worse. And so he was much more supportive. He showed up at the fourth surgery. He was there in the waiting room, even though he was scared as hell. And so he's been much more supportive. And my whole family has been a lot more supportive. And I think because it was a wake-up call for all of us, that even though I seemed healthy and I could still be physically active at that heavy weight, that it was taking its toll, and it was only a matter of time. And that's why they call it morbid obesity, and that I really needed to get it under control.
I have a question from myself. If you could wake up tomorrow at goal, would you take that route, or do you think there's something to be learned along the journey? Because I believe I feel the same as you, that it's about changing the mind. It's more than about fork to mouth, hand to mouth with the food. It's deeper than that for a lot of people that are considerably overweight. So it would be nice to wake up tomorrow at goal, but is that something you would do, or do you want the journey so that you can, what's your view on that?
I think you and I are on the same page as far as it's not about the finish line, it's about the, that journey. So I don't think I would want to wake up at goal. I think I'd want to go through it and learn as much as possible about myself, because that's how I've always been. I've always been one to learn and want to learn and better myself, and I think that's going to continue regardless of whatever weight I'm at. I'm always going to be changing and trying to better myself and learn more about myself and about life and spirituality and all those things. So I don't think I would want to just wake up and be like, weight is not an issue for me anymore, because I think this is my path. I think this is my life path, and I'm going through this to potentially help others and help myself, and I think there's a reason for it. So.
In one of your videos that I watched, you said a quote, and it made me think. You said, "I don't have a weight problem. Weight is a symptom of my problems." And that really stuck out in my mind. What made you come to that realization, and kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so that was with the help of my therapist that I met in 2010. I was actually with her for over a year, and then when I got back from the treatment center, she actually took another job out of state, so I couldn't work with her anymore. And I still think about her a lot. So I think growing up and even in my 20s, I focused on the weight, and I focused on, if I could just get this weight off, my life would be great. And my life is going to start the minute I lose all this weight. And I don't think that's healthy thinking. What I've come to realize as far as my symptom of a bigger problem, I think my ultimate problem is how sensitive I am, and I take things on. I take other people's energy on. I take on other people's problems. I want to solve it for them. I want to save the world. I want to wear that cape and save my family from any heartache and save my friends. And in doing that, none of us are perfect. So in doing that, when we put ourselves last, there has to be a breaking point somewhere. There has to be something, because we aren't perfect. And that's what was happening. Was I was top of the class, always overachiever, and because that's so hard to keep up, then the one thing I couldn't keep up was my eating healthy. I used my binge eating to deal with that stress that I felt all the time, because I felt this need to save the world or save other people. And so I would use food to relax and numb out because I was constantly thinking and constantly trying to think ahead and plan the next potential problem. And I still struggle with that at times. I'm not sure where that stems from. I'm still trying to deal with pinpointing, like at what point, or who is it that's putting all this pressure on me other than myself. I think it's just myself. But I've come a long way, and I still believe that the weight is a symptom of a bigger problem for most people. That it's not just you're too fat, or it's not just you have lack of willpower. What's the reason you have that lack of willpower? What's the reason behind that? And I think that is something for us all to ask ourselves.
Well, I think when we are overweight, we become the queens and kings of excuses all the way around. So I think that we use our weight a lot of times as an excuse, and I really, that's going to stick with me. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Belinda Ball has a question for you. She wants to know if you've been able to start an exercise program yet, and if so, what is your favorite healthy activity?
So exercise, I didn't do. I was doing before surgery. I belong to a gym that's part of. I work in a medical clinic, and they have a hospital that has a gym that's made for patients that have heart issues or COPD or obesity, and so it's monitored. You've always got a medical professional there, and the equipment is made for larger size people, and they've got fans all over the place, which I'm all about the fans, and it's just comfortable, and there's none of that gym stuff of people staring at you, and so I've been going there since 2010. And I mainly do a cardio machine that's called a new step. So it sits back like a recumbent bike, and then your arms go like this, and then your legs are stair stepping, but you're sitting back. So I'm not like on my knees and putting pressure on my knees. And I just like to do that, and I'll listen to like a book on tape, or sometimes I'll watch YouTube channel like shows, and just kind of, I like to be distracted when I'm exercising, because if I'm exercising and I'm sitting there like, oh God, this is so boring.
Yeah.
What time is it now? Oh, it's been 2 minutes. Great, So I really have to distract myself, and I've been doing that consistently. And then I lift weights. I do the 5-pound weights. I watch Aisha Grell and Be Gone, and she has these banging arms that she got from her 5-pound weights. So I always do weights and think of her when I'm doing them. And so the 3 months that I was having the medical problems, I wasn't cleared for any exercise. And then I finally was cleared in January. And so I try to go to the gym usually 3 or 4 nights a week. My therapist has worked with me, and she said someone my age should ideally be going up to 6 times a week. So we have a goal of working towards that, of increasing a day for a few weeks, and then increasing the time, and just working towards a goal. I think exercise is really important, and I know I feel better, not just physically, but emotionally. I feel like, and I've heard this before, that exercise is the best antidepressant, because it gets those endorphins going, and it'll change my mood. And so sometimes I have a hard time getting to the gym. Like I feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to go. I'm too tired, or whatever the excuse is. But once I go, I feel so much better afterwards. And then I've also done yoga. On Wednesdays, they have a chair yoga class at this gym. And so it's a lot of elderly people, but I'm rocking it with them. And I love that, because it's so relaxing, and it brings up that meditation, and she does a little meditation in the end, and sometimes she'll rub our shoulders, and it's just like, but you're also getting that physical fitness. So I would ideally love to be doing more of that. It's just getting it worked into my schedule.
One thing that came up that I wanted to ask you, because I've talked about this too, because you and I have a lot in common with the food addictions and stuff, and we've talked outside of the show. I used to spend upwards of about $1,000 a month in fast food. And some days I would eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I would go through, say, Taco Bell and get dinner, but I'd have to drive over. I'd get a snack from there to eat on the way to McDonald's to actually get what I was going to be consuming for dinner. So I'm just curious, like, fast food is so addicting in itself, and for a food addict, it's like it can be like a nightmare. And I was spending $1,000 a month at least on eating out at fast food places. Did you run into that? What were you spending, if you have any idea at all?
So for a while, I justified it in my mind that I'm going to keep it under $5. You know, that's my plan. And then it got up to $10. And then it got to where I'd go to restaurants and get food. So then I'm looking at $15, and I would still justify it in my mind. I mean, my denial was so deep, and then at certain points I didn't care. As far as going to the 2 fast food places, I don't recall ever doing that, but I definitely, like, I'm smiling when I think about that, because, you know, ordering huge amounts of food and then ordering 2 drinks so that they think I'm taking it home to my kids or my family.
That's what I did.
Even though it's just me. And I think at some point I was so ashamed I didn't even care anymore. And my whole back seat was filled with these fast food cups and garbage, because I'd eat in the car. And that consumption, again, that distraction of the mind of driving and eating and concentrating and listening to the radio, I got to numb out and just relax. And so, like, I still, eating in the car, I still have that craving, but I really try not to, even if I'm eating healthy food, because I know that for me is, you know, I don't want to be numbing out at this stage. I want to be dealing with my feelings so that they don't continue to come up. And as far as the fast food being addicting, I do, for me, definitely think it was addicting. I mean, I went years of having fast food breakfast every day. McDonald's or Starbucks or Carl's Jr. And there are still times where in the mornings, even after surgery, I would watch the news or have whatever TV on in the morning when I'm getting ready, and there's that McDonald's commercial reminding me of, I'm still here, honey, you know, like, anytime you want. And so I don't watch TV in the mornings anymore. I've just cut it out. I listen to the radio, I watch YouTube videos, or I watch a lot of, like, Louise Hay type DVDs. And so I have one right now that I've just been kind of watching as I'm getting ready in the mornings, and that is such a more positive influence on me than those stupid McDonald's commercials that still get me. And then I have that little thought of, well, what if I just get a sausage burrito? Just one. Well, what if I just get this? And I think, I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to. I'm not going there. And I really have to kind of put my foot down with myself, because that little voice is still there.
Yeah. Normally at this time in the show, we would end with our guest, because we'd be recapping things from last week, but we don't have to do that this week. So we're going to push forward with questions from the viewers that are coming in, because there is a lot of them. And what we'll try to do is maybe more of like a rapid, so that we can get a lot of questions answered, like in the next 6-7 minutes, and then we'll be able to answer a lot more questions. So let's go ahead and do that. If Julie or Khalif want to start that with questions that are coming in, that'd be awesome.
I've seen a couple people hit this, so I want to make sure that you have a chance to answer it. They want to know, there's a couple of people that want to know, how do you distract yourself or change your mind when you are tempted to binge or tempted to eat something that you shouldn't? How do you deal with that?
So having that strong feeling, or that strong voice, but not a shaming voice. So making myself say, I don't want to be there anymore. I wasn't bad then, but I want something better now. And just changing that perception a little bit, because so often I would get trapped in that shame of, I'm a bad person, I deserve this, I deserve shitty food, because whatever, this life is over anyway, who cares? And so changing that perception to say, I wasn't bad then, but I want to be better now, has been my main thing. And journaling has been a huge thing. If I'm having struggles where I really want to eat something, I'll journal about it and try and get to what's really bothering me. Well, what's really bothering me is my coworker said this to me and it really upset me and I'm so frustrated. And then that will change it a little bit and distract me enough to get out of that frame of mind of I want that, whatever it is.
It looks like Tina has asked, may there be kettlebells in your future?
I may have to have her show me what to do with them. I'm open to it, and I definitely want to get on a good exercise plan as far as making goals with weights and seeing some difference.
Okay, I have a question for you. What do you think, and actually someone asked this as well, what do you think has been the most difficult part since surgery for you? In all of your journey, what's been the most difficult since surgery?
Still having that craving for wanting to eat food, that urge to need food, that urge to have something in my mouth all the time and to chew and to swallow and all those sensory things that going along with eating. I was eating so much beforehand, still craving that and still wanting to continue. Even though I'm full and I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable, my mouth, my mind, all of this here wants to feel that chewing and that sensation of eating the food, even though my stomach, here down feels like, don't do that, please. I still have that urge and I still struggle with that all the time.
I did have a question and I just lost it. Sorry. Oh, how nervous were you when you made your first video in 2009? Because, it is nervous. I was really scared to make my first one. I didn't know if I was going to be accepted or whatever. How nervous and scared were you?
I feel like I wasn't really expecting anybody to watch. I feel like it's kind of equal that I've made these videos for myself and for others. So I was nervous and I was like shaky, and I know I was sitting like this, like my hands like, hi, so I was nervous, but I didn't really think anybody would really see it. So that kind of took the nerves away. Had I known that so many people would be watching me, I think I would have been more nervous at the time.
What was your first non-scale victory and your favorite non-scale victory?
So my favorite, and I don't even think I've mentioned it on my channel. I think about it and then I forget to mention it. So in my aunt's car, she drove me to many of my appointments. She has a newer car and the seatbelt didn't fit. And so we would have to buckle the seatbelt because otherwise the alarm would be going off the whole time and I'd have to sit on the seatbelt buckled. And to every appointment. And I want to say here a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got in the car and I grabbed the seatbelt and I buckle it and I'm like, la 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 la. Oh my God. And Deb, and she's like, you buckled the seatbelt. I'm like, I buckled the seatbelt. Oh my God, like that's so weird. Like it just happened and we weren't expecting it. And it was like, is that for real? And it was exciting. It was one of those moments that it was surreal because I still feel like the same person. I still feel like I look the same even though my body is shrinking.
That is awesome. Yeah. That gives me goosebumps.
Now, I have a question, and I'm actually stealing this from Rob Reno last week. They asked Jamoki. But I noticed on your application that you said that your first diet was at age 8. Do you have any, do you put any blame on your parents or any other authority figure in your life for you dealing with weight issues when you didn't have control over what you ate?
I really don't, but that's part of my personality as far as taking things on myself. But I recognize that my mom was trying the best she could. So she took me to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician took me, sent me to a nutritionist who was kind of a drill sergeant. And I remember her pointing in my face, and we made a goal sheet. And, when I lost 5 pounds, I would get a Barbie. And I just think about that now, and it breaks my heart. But my mom was doing the best she could. She didn't know what to do. And then my dad had his own weight problems, and I have many memories of him sitting home at the end of the day just eating a whole package of double stuffed Oreos. And that's how I was raised. There was no limits on food, and the food was the kitchen was always stocked. So whatever I wanted, I had access to. And I just think, I feel like they tried the best they could, and for me to focus on my mom should have did this or my dad should have did this, I don't think that helps. Helps me in my journey. But recognizing where they were in their journey, and how it affected me, and how I want to change it for the next generation, how I want to treat my niece and nephews with food, how I want to treat my future children with food, and doing the best that I can with the most knowledge, that's available.
Well, we are at that time, Jenny, where we are going to have to say goodbye, because we're going to give people some information that's coming up on other shows. I personally want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show. You know I adore you, and I think you're amazing, and I love our friendship. So I want to personally thank you for coming on the show tonight. It was wonderful.
You guys are welcome. I've enjoyed this.
Thanks a lot, Jenny. As someone who is newer to your journey, I really appreciate getting to learn more about the earlier years for you and all the struggles that you dealt with up to this time. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. I've been watching you for months now, and I thought, oh, I know everything about Jenny, but I definitely didn't, and I got to see a lot more to you. So it's been really wonderful. So thank you.
You guys are very welcome, and thank you. I can't wait to read the comments. I'm like dying inside. Like, I just want to see what everybody's been saying. So yeah, thank you guys, and I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks, Jenny.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, again, we want to just thank all of you for your wonderful questions and your wonderful comments and all of your great interaction. There's a couple of things that we just want to touch on. The first thing, I just want to remind everyone that we do have the email address of renewshow@gmail.com, where you can send us your question, your comments. If you have any suggestions for guests for the future, or if you want to be a guest on a show yourself in the future, send us an email, and one of us will get back to you. We all have access to it. And right now, Julie is going to let you know who's coming up next week, and then we'll go to the week after.
Okay, first of all, I want to apologize to everyone tonight. I have a head cold, so I've been sniffing and coughing, and I apologize for that. And also, I want to tell you that when you leave comments in the bottom under the video, I can't comment. For some reason, it won't let me comment back to you. So Rob and Khalif look really awesome because they're commenting back, and I appear that I don't care, but I do care. I read every single one of them, and so please forgive me for that. And then let me go on to tell you that next Tuesday, March 12th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Tina Krim, Prairie Princess 1, will be joining us to talk about her journey. She has a lot to say, and it's an incredible story, so you won't want to miss it.
Okay, then the week after that, which is March 19th, we're going to have Crazy Running Mom, Brooke, join us on the show. And I'm very excited about that. She was one of my first fitness faves. And again, I'm just going to be really excited. And I'm going to stop talking now or I'll ramble on because she's awesome.
And then the week after that, you guys are going to get to question the co-hosts. All three of us will be answering your questions for us, whatever they may be. We'll probably try to do it more of as a rapid fire kind of question answer thing so that we can get as many answered as possible. And I want to remind everybody that Daylight Saving Time is this coming weekend, and the show will air at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday. So when your time zone switches, if it does at all, like in Arizona we don't, just remember that the show will air at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But Daylight Saving Times is this weekend, so some people it will affect what time you tune into the show.
All right, thank you for that reminder, Rob. So that's it. We just want to encourage you guys to continue to promote the channel and tell everyone about it. And again, just want to thank you for all of your participation, for interacting with us, with the guests, and with each other. and we just hope that you keep it up. And so now it's time for us to go. So I just want to say thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.